Okay. We're completely blowing the agenda, but that's okay. Code of conduct on the Elementor.com website, that's fine. We've introduced ourselves, that's great. So let's get into this. This talk is about design tokens, what they are and how you can actually practically use them within Elementor. So no theory, heavy driven systems, no Figma, deep dives, stuff like that. Just a small set of decisions that can make Elementor a little bit easier to build, maintain, and a bit safer to hand over to clients as well. Okay, so why do Elementor sites get messy over time? We both know this. Most Elementor sites don't start off messy. They do become messy after 12 months of changes, tweaks, quick fixes, and just this once edits. So the problem isn't really Elementor. The problem is that people treat every page as a fresh design decision instead of building a system once and then reusing that. And I know it's really easy to do, but what we're going to do today is we're going to flip that and show everyone how we can build a system first so that we don't have to be editing page by page as a fresh design each time. I think the key thing is if you're changing a brand color, so if a client comes to you and says, I want to change my brand color from this to that, and it gives you the heebie-jeebies and your hair stand up, then that's probably a good sign that you don't have a proper design system in place. So designing pages versus designing systems. So designing pages is fast and it feels productive. Design a system kind of feels slower up front. Of course, the hope is that it saves you time every week after it's been implemented. A system, you're making decisions with a system that you don't really immediately look like it's a finished thing. And that's what probably gets a lot of people. So rather than think about decisions up front, put some sort of system in place, it is just a lot faster to go in and more productive. It looks visually productive to produce a page that you can then show the clients. But then you're in that kind of page versus page fresh design rather than kind of really stepping back and thinking how this system is going to work. And of course, system is going to save you time every single week after it's been put in place. A system answers questions in advance, things like what color is the body text, what spacing do we use between containers, what does a primary button always look like. So we're taking a 1,000 feet overview and we're looking at the whole website as like a system of components rather than a page by page process. So when those types of questions are answered, building is pretty boring. In the best possible way, I think, because everything is systemized. So without a system, every widget becomes a decision point. Every page becomes a design conversation. And that's where the inconsistencies and fatigue creep in, especially for us developers if we're doing page by page. So when people hear the term design tokens, it can sound very abstract. I totally get that. Like some sort of enterprise design system agency or some big Figma workflows. But at its simplest level, a design token really is just a decision with a name against it. It can be as simple as we can make it. So instead of saying this blue, you say primary color. Instead of saying font size, you say body text or heading 1 or footer bullet list. You give that decision a name. It could be a function, it could be an intent, but the idea is to give it a name for that particular design. So the important part is not the technology, really. It's really the intent, the naming of stuff. So a token exists so that you can make a decision once and reuse it everywhere. Change the token and everything that it depends upon updates. That's the holy grail. That's what us developers and designers would love to do. That's it. It's not magic. No heavy processes required. Just a different way of thinking about designing websites. So we'll park the formal definition there because what matters next is really how it shows up inside Elementor. So inside Elementor, design tokens are not a separate feature. They already exist in there. They live in the global colors, the global fonts, global typography, advanced spacing as well. You repeat across containers. So it's already there. It's just not really labeled as design tokens is what I'm talking about today. So when you set a global color here, you're creating a token. So this is the global colors settings page. When you name it, if you name it well and reuse it, you're working system first. And that's what we want to be doing as developers and designers. Most people think that they're using tokens because they've clicked on this panel once. In reality, they still kind of go page by page and widget by widget and change all the colors. But this is the area where the design tokens really should be adhered to, named. So getting this stuff first is the important way of implementing designs. So it's a difference really between messy Elementor site and a resilient one. It's not whether global styles exist, it's whether they're treated as the source of truth, and that's what we want design tokens to be. Set them up once and then reflect them all the way through the website. A quick note on Elementor Editor version 4. So Elementor is moving forward to what they call a class-based system driven editor. This does not remove the need for tokens. It actually reinforces the fact that using design tokens is the primary way forward. And I'm focusing on foundations today. I'm not going to go into the version 4 or class first based design. I'll do that in a future session, just solely based on that. But we're just doing the basics, the essentials, the foundation today. Why color is where things break first. Now, color is usually the first point where you get a call from the client and things are going a bit off. So color is usually where Elementor sites do that kind of break-in bit first. Not because people choose bad colors, but because they choose too many versions of the same color. So you end up with a slightly different grades for text, almost the same background colors, one-off color added just for this particular container. And then none of that feels wrong in the moment. And each change makes sense when you're making it. You're going page by page, widget by widget. The problem is that 6 months later, when no one is quite sure which gray is the right gray anymore. So this is also where client edits cause the most damage because they're going in and they're updating pages. They're updating call to actions and they're using different colors. What shade of yellow should they use or what shade of purple should they use in the background because there's 10 of them and nobody really knows because they're all labeled purple 1, purple 2, purple 3, purple 4, and nobody has any scoobies 6 months later exactly which one to use. So because without clear intent, color changes spread really unpredictably. And color is the one thing that most clients will play around with when they're designing their own pages. Fonts and stuff usually generally stay the same, but when you give clients control of the page editor, when they're creating the containers, that's when they see all the buttons there and you want to click on the background and just change everything. It's not really their fault, it's just because they've got no guidance on which colors to use and the system's not being set up. So to fix this color chaos, it's not a big palette. It's not to introduce a bigger palette, sorry. It's a smaller one, but one with clear intent. So for most Elementor...
If I can just jump in a sec, Will.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but color's really important because the human eye is not so good with absolute color. All reds look the same, but when you put them side by side, the slightest difference is immediately visible. We're very good at relative color. We can tell that one red isn't the same as another when you put them side by side. And yeah, as soon as somebody starts playing, oh, that red's about right. Nah, it's not. Never is.
That's it. It's about right. That's the problem. Absolutely. So I mean the fix for this, it's not adding more colors. It's actually what we want is a small palette, but one with intent and labeled properly. That's going to fix most of the issues. So most Elementor sites, you'll need a handful of color tokens. You don't need 300 of them. One or two brand colors, maybe one or two accent colors, maybe a small neutral scale for text, backgrounds, and borders, and that's it. So the goal here is not flexibility. The goal is confidence. So giving the client confidence as to which color that they need to choose. Here's just an example from one of my websites. I've probably got far too many custom colors, but you can see here I've got them labeled, image background, uh, problem issue background, inspo realism, that's an actual text, but they're service icons, things like that. So 6 months down, when I change another service icon, I know which color it should go in. So when colors are clearly defined, you stop kind of second guessing yourself, and the clients do, and they stop breaking things because it's clearly labeled. Yeah, so this is I've probably got too many grays here. Yeah, probably the key takeaway here for colors is if you can't explain why a color exists, it probably shouldn't be a global one. It's all right to go into pages and sections and change the color, that's fine, but what we're looking at is brand consistency when we're designing stuff, not just, as you say, kind of winging it and eyeing it out every time. So purpose is clarity to help define these color design tokens. Steve says, can you or do you have a way to remember what primary, secondary, and accent means? Yeah, that's, I wish they didn't name those, or if you could rename them, because they don't kind of make sense. Yeah,
I mean,
primary,
obviously, I know what text means, but I don't know. I don't have a fucking clue what primary or secondary or accent means.
yeah, accent uses it in buttons, I think, which just bugs me.
I think too, kind of, but I don't ever use it for buttons, so I don't ever know what it's doing.
Yeah, I don't particularly pay attention to those. I generally use the text one again because that it's obvious what that is.
Yep.
I go and add in my own custom colors. But yeah, to me, as a design token, primary and secondary and accent just doesn't mean anything. Primary for what? And secondary.
Then that doesn't mean shit. Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And have you seen that this now comes up on an actual page of your site? Like if
Yeah,
you go to site settings, if you do it from page, it like shows up on a page. That's weird.
yeah. And you can't scroll it either, which is even more bizarre.
Yeah, it's really weird. It can't scroll it or anything. Okay.
So naming is where most token systems quietly fail. People just don't name them properly. They don't describe why it exists. The problem shows up in moments somebody asks which color should I use here. So names like primary text, muted text, border describe the intent. That's pretty clear. They answer the question before it's asked. You know exactly what it's for. So this isn't about strict rules. It's not about perfect naming. It's just about making design decisions pretty obvious, so that when a client comes to the site 6 months later and uh, they want to change the text, then they have, or they use a border, then they know exactly which color it is because it basically tells them what it is. So good names let you change the color later without changing what it means. So in this example, there's a button orange token. Um, Not ideal because what happens if the client wants to change their primary buttons to green? If they're a bit daft to still call the token button orange and then change it to green, that'd be super confusing. So in this case, it'd probably been better to name this design token primary button background, because then you can change any color. So try and avoid using colors for color design. Try and avoid using font names for font design patterns. Just try and use their intent for what they're being used for, or a description of where they're being used. If the name makes sense to you, if it only makes sense to you, it's probably not a good system name to use. Typography. This is where Elementor tends to overwork things. It's very easy to tweak fonts widget by widget because Elementor makes it so easy and accessible to do with all the the different buttons in the UI. The problem is that every one of those tweaks quietly breaks consistency across the site. And you'll know yourself coming to sites. I've seen lots of client sites where you go page by page by page, and something just seems a little bit off. The font's a little bit different. You're like, why is the body font different? So it just makes that whole brand image, that whole look and feel a little bit off and weird, and that's not what you want to do. That's not what you want to appear to your clients. So a simple global typography setup does most of the heavy lifting. Body text, a clear heading hierarchy, very few exceptions. I don't see typography very much being changed in client sites. I've had a few client sites where, yes, people went in and changed things all over the place. But in general, I think if the typography is set up well initially by the developer, the designer, it mostly follows through across the entire site, which is good, and that's what it's used for. So when typography lives in global styles, pages scale better, change feels a bit safer, and accessibility becomes much, much easier to manage because you're not having to look through page by page basis. So the goal here isn't control, it's kind of just removing those decisions that you don't need to be making on a page by page, widget by widget decision. So if you're fixing typography per widget, per container, you're already too late. You need to kind of step back a bit, go back into your global typography and just get that fixed and sorted initially. Accessibility and scaling as well. So one of the side effects of using global typography properly, which is a good side effect, is that accessibility becomes much, much easier to manage because it's replicated throughout the entire site. When text sizes and line heights live in one place, increasing readability is a single change, not a site-wide hunt for that particular widget that is Comic Sans 22 pixels. The same applies to scaling. It's easier to scale the whole site if we've got our global typography set and managed. Sites built on globals respond better when font sizes need to grow, when layouts need to adapt to different breakpoints, or content changes over time. You don't have to be an accessibility expert to benefit from this. You just need to have fewer overrides and a clear intent for that global typography. System decisions age better as well than page by page or widget by widget decisions. So accessibility problems, they often come from inconsistency, not really bad intentions, but just those page by page, widget by widget tweaks that shouldn't be happening. And if you do have a client that's going into pages and widgets and they're tweaking the font because it doesn't look right, that's a big red flag that you need to go into the global typography and just set things that look right across the entire website. Spacing. Spacing is a token that pretty much everyone ignores, but it's so important. Most layout issues aren't color problems. They're not font problems either. They're usually spacing problems. Padding generally gets eyeballed, the same as we were talking about colors earlier on. It looks about right. Margins get nudged a little bit. Gaps get adjusted in separate pages and containers until it feels about right. And that works for one page, but it completely falls apart once the site grows. And it looks really bad for visitors when they're getting that inconsistency, things shifting all over the place. It's not good for brand, it's not good for reading, not good for accessibility either. So inconsistent spacing is what makes the layouts feel a little bit fragile, even when everything else might be technically correct. And it's also why responsive layouts break in weird ways, because spatial decisions were they were reactions. So I'm sure everyone's come across a point where you're showcasing the new website and your client comes back to say that their boss is still running Internet Explorer 5 or something, or some weird mobile phone that they found somewhere in a drawer, and this section is not displaying correctly, and can you nudge it over 17.5 pixels? And you're just like, no. So we've all come across these issues. We just need to make sure we get the spacing right from the start. So if a layout feels off, but you can't explain why, it's usually more about spacing, line spacing and margin and stuff, that it is about the fonts themselves or the colors or even the content. Small, medium, and large is usually enough. You don't need a complex spacing scale. For most Elementor sites, those 3 spacing sizes is enough. I had an organization I worked with last year. They went with extra small and extra large, which is great. So those are 5, and we use that consistently across the site, which is super. But you don't need 30 different scales. 3, 5 is fine. So small spacing for things that work together, that belong together, tight copy. Medium spacing for separate sections, containers. Large spacing for major layout breaks is fine. The exact values don't really matter as much as the consistency. I should mention about fluid fonts and fluid spacing, which is something that is a lot of people are implementing now, and it's kind of a way around this. Is that the spacing in the padding grows depending on what device you're looking for, and I might cover that in a separate talk later on. But for now, we're still just talking about kind of pixels or rems, I think, is spacing. So this isn't about locking layouts down. We're not saying to the client, you don't touch that and don't move that around. It's about making the spacing more boring and more reliable, and more consistent. So if you can't name why a spacing value exists, then it probably shouldn't exist in the first part. Most clients don't break websites on purpose. I know it feels like that sometimes when you're a developer. They change colors because they think they're improving things. They adjust spacing because something feels a bit off. They copy and paste because, well, that's just how it works. When a site isn't built on a system, though, those small changes ripple through unpredictably, and it's usually down to us to fix things. Using tokens and a design system should reduce that risk. I'm not going to say it's going to fix everything overnight, but it's going to reduce that risk a lot. They give clients safe places to make changes as well. So if the spacing is wrong, then we go to the globals, we go to the design token, we change that and change it throughout the whole site, rather than go page by page, widget by widget. If things just behave the way they expect when we're talking about design tokens. And that confidence really matters more than any other individual design choice, I think. So as part of your handover, you train the client on where to go and how to update these design tokens or site-wide system changes. You can throw in a try not to modify each widget unless really necessary, friendly bit of advice. So a good system doesn't stop clients editing. We're not trying to stop editing. It just stops their edits from being problems later down the line. From your side, the client, the developer, the designer, this is where the real payoff shows up. Sites built on systems tend to take less time to change. We're just going into the one area and it's affecting site-wide systems, which is great. So that usually means less time to maintain and far less time to explain, which is great. You're not jumping between different pages and different widgets trying to explain why one is bigger than the other or one has a different background. Handover becomes a bit calmer as well. Maintenance becomes easier to price because you're just going into one different area. So if a client comes back and wants to change the primary button from red to blue, then that's fine. That's just 1 or 2 design tweaks. It's not a page-by-page basis, so you can get them at a fair price for that. And older sites, older as in the ones you built 2 years ago, don't feel as fragile when time comes for clients to do a rebrand or shift in their branding. It's also where your work starts to feel more professional. Because if you can turn around a site-wide change like that, the jaws start to go down, and clients are like, "What? Amazing!" So it's not that we don't want to appear flashier. We just want to appear more consistent and certainly under pressure. So systems reduce stress long before they increase revenue. We're not trying to stiff clients by saying that just one change and change the whole thing, and we build them for 10 hours. That's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to make our jobs easier. We're trying to reduce risk and look more professional and give the clients what they actually need. Here's the key takeaway. One thing to fix this week. So if you could only change one thing today for yourself or your client, make it this. Go into Elementor's Global Colours, remove anything that you don't trust, you don't know, merge those duplicate 5 different shades of yellow, rename the colours by what they're for, not what they look like. So not gold 1, gold 2, gold 3, but call to action client 1, call to action client 2, all that sort of thing. Button, primary button, secondary button, things like that. You don't need to redesign anything either. It's just, you don't need to rebuild any pages. It's just putting systems in place, doing design tokens. So it's one change, just changing those colors names will immediately make your or your client's Elementor sites safer, calmer, and easier to work with because they know exactly what they're doing and which ones they're picking. They're not going to be reinventing stuff anymore, which is great. It's probably one of the highest returns you can fix in the shortest amount of time. So most systems don't need a rebuild. They just need a bit of a cleanup, a bit of an intent. So Elementor itself is incredibly flexible. Some will say too flexible because it gives clients everything to click on. But I think the flexibility is its strength. But flexibility without a system in place, without design tokens, that's what makes it fragile over time. Design tokens, they aren't about control or complexity. They're about deciding where the change is allowed to happen and not preventing clients from doing a page by page, widget by widget, complete overhaul. So when you design a system first, everything built on top of it should become easier to trust. And that's really the whole idea about design tokens and system first building. Okay, that's the main presentation. A couple of things just to kind of wrap it up before we go to questions. There's lots of features that Elementor always bring out. Here's 3 that are worth noting, and they're related to support the kind of systems and design tokens thing that we just covered. One is variables, so CSS variables. At the moment, they're just implemented with the editor version 4. And they're just applied to fonts, so font colors, font names, a couple of extra things. But they will be introduced for more things. So variables, CSS variables, very good. It's worth noting and keep an eye on that. And class manager and states. Again, this is the new kind of class first based system that Elementor is moving to. So reusable styles that reduce widget per widget overrides. We just define things once. So, primary button, then primary button hover, primary button active, things like that, and then we apply it site-wide. And that's all rolled up in the version 4 editor, which is just been moved into beta just this week. Elementor are saying to use it on production sites. Yeah, I'd probably hold off a little bit on that. I know it won't change too much being beta, but it's still likely to change. So play around with it on your own sites, I would say, but client sites, I'd be a little bit more reserved in doing that at the moment. Elementor roadmap, what are they doing this year? Well, we don't know. This is what I got from the website. So 2026 roadmap coming soon. So just keep an eye on that. It's elementor.com/roadmap. And before we jump to questions, just a quick look at what we're doing next month. So the session next month, advanced container layouts without overengineering. This session is about container layouts that technically work, but feel a bit fragile, hard to edit, or one small change away from breaking. I'm sure we've all been there. Containers are powerful, but without a clear structure and intent, they're very easy to over-engineer. I've come against client websites that have 5, 6, 7 nested containers. So we're going to look at that. So next month, we'll look at kind of practical layout patterns that hold up over time, how structured containers, so content doesn't cause chaos, and how to make responsive decisions without breakpoint hacks and duplications. So it's not a feature tour, it's just about kind of more calmer, more maintainable layouts that you can apply to existing sites. So same time next month, Wednesday, February 25th, 6:30, if that sounds useful. Please do tune in. I have, I'll just post this in the chat. I'm sure you know, but just for everyone else that tunes back in, those are the three places to go to if you want to keep an eye on exactly what's happening in WordPress. Elementor Free changelog, which is on WordPress.org, the Elementor Pro changelog, which is on Elementor.com, and then developers updates feature release is developers.elementor.com/blog. Okay, let me just switch off my screen share. That's back. What were your thoughts about that, about design token?
I use it. I use that all the time. I just can never figure out what those things meant, and I just thought you might know because I was like, I was thinking I'm not going to look like that much of a jackass. Like, I'll never see these guys in person, so if I ask and they know, that'd be cool because no one ever really knows. I mean, I've asked everybody. Supposed, because I host an Elementor thing on the first Monday with Sharon over here, and we do stuff, and people always ask, and those fonts even to go like no one even knows like what they are or anything. It's like, if you put Roboto, they put Roboto Mono in there. I mean, I don't even understand like what I don't know what that is. And I know what it is, but I don't know what they were thinking about that, I mean, I don't know, but I just thought it was something I was missing. So,
Yeah, no. I think it was a bad choice, a bad design choice by putting in
oh
those
yeah,
primary and secondary. They should be, as we just talked about, they should be meaningful.
that's right. Or you should be able to you should be able to change their names
Yeah.
because there's just
Well,
four colors that don't mean anything. I guess they mean something because they're there and they're supposed to be used for something, but what?
Well, some of the biggest arguments I've ever seen in development circles, in peer reviews, have been over naming conventions.
yeah.
You know,
I know, huge arguments. I know.
spending hours arguing about
Oh,
what
bitching
we're going
how
to
you name
name
your
this
files and
thing.
all that. I know. I'm with you. I got no time for that.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
thanks, Will. That was great. Like I'll agree with Steve. I've used that quite a bit, mainly as it's evolved because, but just recently I did a website for an existing customer who wanted redone, and they got a web um, designer in to do it, graphic artist. Okay, which is fine. I don't mind. I normally do it myself, but yeah, great. Only problem is the graphic artist and the client weren't really on the same page and having all these disputes. And so she sent me all these beautiful style layouts and things. So I implemented them as customs, and globals and all the rest of it. I think we went through 5 different versions, including changing the primary font and changing color. And it's like, thank God I did it as globals because it took me like a minute to change the whole site.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but still, you shouldn't have got involved until way.
Oh, one of the things when she said she was getting a designer, I thought, great, because normally working with this client was just ongoing for ages. And I thought, okay, the client can have all that, the web developer can have all of that, and she'll just give me the finished thing and I'll implement it. Great, easy job.
Yeah,
But no, it all, yeah. So it turned out to be a nightmare. But at least the custom things, at least that side of it was, oh, okay, we want a different font. Well, just change the font, bang, done.
Right.
One of the biggest, I don't have a problem with customers changing things that much, but where I do have problems is two things. One, they don't understand, for example, what headers mean. And so they'll use headers as a styling element. Oh, we want to make this a bit bold, so we'll make this a header 5.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, okay, that makes it a bit bold, but header 5 implies other things, brings in other things, has other effects. Uh, the other good one is they'll do it in Word or some other word processor,
And bring it
and
all
they'll
in.
copy it across as rich text
Yes.
without realizing it. And all of a sudden, they've got a completely different font and they've highlighted things and all that style's all come in. And so it's completely overridden anything I've got. And they're
Yeah.
going, well, it doesn't make any sense. And the other good one that's a trap for young players is they'll cut and paste from PDFs. Now, PDFs isn't rich text, but it has embedded carriage returns, new lines.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so your word wrapping will just completely go insane
Yeah,
because it'll hard page break in the middle of in the middle of sentences and things, and you go, why isn't that flowing? It's like,
yeah, yeah. That's exactly copy and paste. Clients use copy and paste all the time. I
yeah,
had a client I was working in just in October, and they were literally tearing their hair out because they couldn't understand why the fonts were different on this particular page.
yeah,
And yeah, copied it, or someone had copied it from a Microsoft document. And it was all HTML.
yeah.
It's its own
Absolutely,
inline
which is
CSS.
fine. And yeah, I've been around long enough to have seen it many times, so I just take one look and go, yeah, I know what's happened. Um, and you just grab the text, drop it into Notepad Plus or something, and pull it back, and problem solved. But yeah, yeah, that's the interesting one.
Yeah, so that is interesting though because us as seasoned developers and designers understand how to educate clients when we're doing handover and stuff like that. But yeah, for new people, it might not be so obvious on
Never obvious.
how to tell clients how to operate content and look after the website and what to change so it doesn't break.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I'm
luckily, most of my clients are pretty good that
hmm,
they'll say, we don't understand what's gone wrong. And then we explain it to them and go, oh, okay, we didn't know that. So it doesn't stop them doing it again, but at least, they're good about it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. They don't mind you telling them, just how dumb they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, one of my clients particularly does a lot of this, and they've paid me to write training documents for their staff. So, yeah, I'm all over that, no worries.
Yeah, yeah, completely. I was in the same boat as you, Paul, a few years ago. I had a startup company and they had a designer design their website, but they were a product designer, not a web designer.
Mm.
So,
Oh no.
big font, circles, overlapping stuff, no concept of hover or active. They didn't even know what that existed. And
Ah,
yeah, and these beautiful, beautiful Figma designs, just beautiful, but totally not translatable to a web. And the
Yeah.
guy I was talking to, he wasn't a tech guy, and he was struggling to understand why I was having such difficulty putting it on. And I said to him, I said, look, go, he says, is there one thing you can tell my designer so we can get it right? I said, yes, think of a box. Boxes stacked on top of boxes, and things only fit in a box. No overlapping. He's like,
that
right,
works.
we'll try
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's really good actually. That's a pretty good that's pretty good.
That was my when they announced Gutenberg, and it was a block-based editor. I was thinking, great, that sounds great. Stack things on top of each other, and that made sense. It's involved with a bit of a beast at the moment, but I think the basic premise they're onto something there. But I am looking forward to this version 4 editor, this kind of CSS first model. I
Yep.
think it's going to take a while for people to transition into that. I don't think companies or clients will pay for a rewrite into the system, so it's going to be new sites and rebuilds. They'll take these, so there's going to be a bit of time where there's a transition between the two. But yeah, looking forward to. I'm glad they moved into beta, so it's not going to change too much now. But I still think there's a lot of things that are missing. The number of atomic elements are still. I think there could still be more of them. So when they say it's ready for production release, I'm like, is it? Is it really?
Right. That's the problem. I think there's going to be a lot of that. Like if I mean, I think a lot of people are going to be hesitant to change to it just because, they don't want to get burned like they did before. I mean, that's
Yeah, I think some of Elementor's popularity is that the layperson can just drag elements across and tweak them and build pages, which is great. I think when the layman gets their hands on Elementor version 4 editor, you can still do that to a certain extent, but the UI is built as a design first system. So I'm wondering whether the popularity is going to go down a little bit with this kind of new system because they're starting to get on the heels of breakdance and oxygen and what's the other one, the V one um, that people are using.
bricks.
Bricks, yeah. They're more kind of developer focused and do that kind of class first based model, and that's great. But Elementor's trying to go in that direction. I'm just wondering if the lay people are going to follow it if they commit themselves completely to this. So that'll be interesting to see what happens when version 4 is rolled out.
Yeah, I tend not to pay too much attention to things until they go to prod, other than just vaguely, because things change as well. But one of the things I had early on that was frustrated me with Elementor is that I seem to spend forever fighting with CSS, to try and make Elementor do what I wanted. So interestingly, I've been playing with a another page builder because it's being used by an organization I'm using, and that's what they use, Site
Yeah.
Origin, which is much, much basic to Elementor. They're happy with it. They've got trained with it, and none of them are web people. They're trying to do their own website as lay people, basically.
Yeah.
But its whole strategy was to have very simple widgets with very few controls over them. And then you had a general CSS editor that you could then visually pull up your page and then start playing with your CSS, which I thought was an interesting approach.
Pretty cool.
You know, um, it's got all the frustrations of playing with CSS because even if you make it visual, it's still, why can't I use this option? Where's that option? Well,
It's still code.
It's still a level up, and it generates the code for you in the end, so you still end up with code. But at least it's completely got out of the way of your CSS. You've got a CSS tool that just does CSS globally, so.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm also interested. I went to one of the WP Engine talks at Christmas, and the new version of ACS, Advanced Custom Fields, has got an inline editor. So an inline editor. So you actually go
On the new one?
you actually go into the page in real time and change stuff, and you can change font sizes and things in real time for certain bits of their blocks. So I'm kind
That's kind of cool.
keen to get that. I think it's in alpha or beta at the moment. But yeah,
That's cool.
that's kind of I mean that's what people like about Wix and Squarespace, I think, is you've got this WYSIWYG editor that you just click on things and change it in real time. I think that was always the goal of Gutenberg, but it didn't really
Well, the other
No, missed the mark.
yeah.
the other I'll give a counterpoint to that. I hear what you're saying. People love your Wix and your Squarespace, but I've picked up a number of customers that have come away from Squarespace just pulling their hair out, going, please just take my site and make it work, because it's WYSIWYG and they can see it, but as what we've been saying with you're playing around with your Elementor, people just get in, they change things, and they move it around, they change the color, and the next thing you know, it's just visually a giant mess. I mean, because it's so easy to use. So you've just made this giant mess so easily, and now you've got to unpick it, make it work. And they're not designers, they just want this thing to work. And it's a bit of a slippery slope, because it seems so easy to get into and make it work and that sort of thing. But then that gets away from them and they've got all these things going everywhere and nothing lines up. And of course, then they discover that they can't get out of Squarespace because it's a closed or
Yeah.
Wix or whatever, and it's because it's a
Yeah.
closed thing. So,
The old kind of design system, you can't take it out of the box once it's in the box.
yeah, I think that's the problem. On one side, you can make it real easy for users to shoot their foot off,
Hmm.
or you can make it so that developers can do it properly, but that makes it hard for users to shoot their foot off. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's exactly what I think about with this version 4 of Elementor. Is it going to make developers' lives easier? And at the same time, is it going to make layman's people more difficult to build build a web page in? So that's why I'm interested in seeing what happens.
yeah, it's a fine
Oh,
balance.
just seeing if they're going to come through on what they're trying to do versus not. Hmm. So they're obviously trying. I mean, they're obviously trying to combat the stuff that Kevin Geary says about them, right? I mean, he's the
Yeah.
one saying if it's not class-based, you can't use it, blah blah blah, and he's got a big following. I mean, we all watch him just to hear him rant,
Yes.
and he's funny, and so he just always and of course you're going to poke the big dog. I mean, like I posted when we first started, only 14% of the websites are Elementor.
Mhm.
Well, and what the hell? That's a lot, right? I mean, that's quite a bit, considering 40% are WordPress, and then you figure the rest are, like of that, like half are freaking are Elementor sites, right? And so you he's gonna poke it because no one's using. I mean, no, it's not a high percentage of people using bricks or etch or any of that, right? I mean, we all follow it and we all keep up with it and we know about it and yeah, have a lifetime with bricks and all that. But I've never built a site with it. I mean, I've messed around with it. I know a couple people that only use it, but
Yeah.
the stuff that they do, it takes them so long to set it up that, and they're like, oh, it's so easy. I'm like, dude, everything you say about Elementor, about it not loading fast, about it not doing this, I have all that mastered.
Yeah.
And why am I going to change when I have 200 sites on it? Why would I change? And like 30 of them are active. Like 30 people pay me to maintain their Elementor sites. Well, I can't. Am I going to do change everybody to bricks now? No way.
Yeah. 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 It does make sense.
I'm excited about the new version though. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
excited about
Yeah. Yeah.
looks pretty
Definitely
exciting.
play around with it. And later on, I'll do a more in-depth analysis, probably once it moves over to production.
Hmm.
But gents, thanks very much for joining me. I appreciate your company. I'm going to wrap up this evening. Let you get back to sleep.
My work. No, I got to work, man. I got plenty of work to do. So, yeah, we'll see,
Okay.
man.
Yeah, thanks for the questions. Thanks for the company, and see you next month.
You
Yeah,
bet,
take
brother.
care, Will.
Bye,
See you,
all.
man. Bye, Paul. See you.
Bye.